Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of the His and Her Life Hacks podcast. I'm Larry,
And I'm Dawn.
and we're joined today by our special guest, Beth Probst. Hello, Beth.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Dawn. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation and get to talk about our kids.
Yeah.
Are they gonna listen, do you think?
Let's hope. Maybe because it's coming from you, they must.
Yes. We know that trick. Use a third party to communicate. That does work well.
Yeah.
Well, so today's topic, and we'll introduce you more formally here in a second, is really supporting our children as they start to think through and navigate through, what do they want to be when they grow up? So when they're in high school, there's a lot of pressure on them. Typically, well, you're going to go to college and you're going to do this, but is that really the right process to go through? And this is a subject near and dear to our hearts. My daughter Faith is literally graduating next Friday, so she just went through this process. Yes. And for the last year or two, I've my daughter Carmel's about to enter 11th grade, so we're starting to get into this process in earnest. And I have Solomon coming along behind him, and then we've had 5 more before them who have gone through it. So again, this is relevant and near and dear, and I think for a lot of people out there trying to navigate how to help and support your children decide what they want to do, and then what's the right path to go and pursue once they've made that decision. So
I love it. And Larry, I'll just say from the top too, at some point during this conversation, we have to address the idea. We don't have to do it right now, but we have to address the idea that someone's listening to this and saying, oh no, not another discussion of the pressure of my kid has to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life when they're 17.
Right.
Because I have some thoughts on that I'd love to share. And I understand that concern. So if people are listening and they've got that concern, let's make sure we weave that into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a concern we have too. Like it's a young age to make some decisions like this, but I think it's more of a process to go through, like an awareness and a cognizance of what you're going through, as opposed to just kind of blindly racing off to what's the best college again.
And I have an experience that we can talk about later with one of my daughters where she thought she knew what she wanted to do, and then it changed entirely after we went through the process. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So since 2012, Beth Probst, founder and CEO of At the Core, has inspired parents of college-bound students to think strategically about how to select the best fit college, major, and career so they don't end up wasting precious time, energy, and money. Beth's practical tips and stories from the trenches equip parents and students with the information to eliminate the grasping and guessing and boost their confidence and clarity when making college-related decisions. Beth generously shares what students can do during high school to engage with their interests and take steps to leverage every opportunity before college.
Someone in marketing wrote that, I think, Larry. So it's very exciting. Yeah.
What you do is so needed right now. So more than ever now.
It is. And I think, we use a picture a lot, Dawn, and it's one of my favorite pictures because it expresses things well, but it's not a happy picture. It's a picture of a graduate with their cap on and their gown on and hundreds of question marks over their head.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what so many of our students feel when they leave that comfort of their kindergarten through 12th grade educational experience. And they're like, now what? And so that now what is scary. And I think there's just a lot of things that we can help them do during those high school years that bring them to a more confident decision at the end of high school. It won't be, I don't have a magic wand. I can't poof, you should be this. And, no one does, but there are absolutely experiences and things that we can do to expose our kids to the real world that will help them shape what they want at the end of high school and remove some of those question marks above that head. So, So, and kind of thinking of that head again, I'm thinking of our kiddos and I'm thinking most of them, just another head analogy. Sorry, I don't know why this is on my mind today, but think of them with their head down during high school. They literally are head down. Mm-hmm. They are moving to the next class, figuring out when they're going to go to that football game. where are we going to go this weekend? What movie are we going to see? Whose house are we going to go to? Where's the next quiz? What's the next paper I need to write, right? Head down. We want them to lift their head up and really look out and have that benefit of wider vision so that they can start to say, ooh, that looks horrible. I would never want to do that. Or that's kind of interesting. Or there's some qualities of that kind of role. That's what lets them start to shape what can feel right for them. But we have to help them because their nature is not to do that. Their nature is to have that head down. So those are the kinds of
young. I mean, I remember back to my high school days, I was in 2 clubs. One was FBLA, which was Future Business Leaders of America, and the other one was DECA.
Yeah.
I forget what that stood for, but both of them were preparing me for adulthood, making decisions, business, everything, because I had focused on business, interviewing, talking to people, building confidence. Those are the skill sets, which I call mindset skills, right? And in my case, they were developed under challenges and stuff, but it doesn't have to be that way. It's just like, I think especially today, parents just often want to make the child's life easy so they don't push them to do things, and that inhibits the child's ability to actually adapt in this crazy world.
Absolutely. And in fact, you're so lucky that you had those experiences in high school, because today there is great pressure for many high school students to not necessarily do things like that, but instead to pour their time into more AP classes, more IB classes, right? Jump up that rigor, do that homework, because that's what's going to look good when the time comes. And so I think there are just these real competing messages that are out there that our kids are hearing, and they don't know exactly how to make those decisions. So I think high school can be a great time of balance and exploration. But that all is if everybody's on board and can kind of help that student understand that, taking the 5 AP classes in 1 year is, that's a lot. And maybe you can dial, to turn that dial a little bit this way down, but turn this other dial up a little bit. What about getting a part-time job? Or what about, engaging in a summer program that sounds interesting to you? So
I know you mentioned that to Larry, and I think that's brilliant because that gives them an opportunity to explore whatever that area is that they think they want to go into. And then they learn what they don't want to do as well. So
they can. So just a quick note on internships in high school. So a lot of, I hear this getting thrown around in certain circles on the high school side for internships. I would love families to know that the norm is that traditional, real internships are at the college level. Yeah. So, and that's because an employer needs to know that student that's coming in has certain skills, and they can apply those skills in the accounting department or in the, biology department or whatever. In high school, there are often other ways to have touch points from a career perspective that may not be that traditional internship. So it may be, it could be shadowing. It could be a part-time job, but those are typically using the skills that a high school student has. Could be informational interviews or other types of exposure. So I just wanted to bring that up because there are a lot of people who think, oh, how can my high schooler get an internship? And typically the answer is that they can't, because they don't have the skills that an employer needs them to have, and they can do that after some college. So just want to take a quick side note on that. Yeah.
So we started talking a little bit, and like the pressure that's on kids when they get into high school, and what college you want to go to, and it's so much focus goes into the college search process. Sometimes in 10th grade you're already taking visits, right? My younger kids went on with the older kids, and they were on campuses, when they were still in elementary school, right? And that's a lot of what the focus tends to be. But you talk more about there's 3 decisions kind of they need to go through as they're kind of evaluating what they're going to go do. So let's it's not just all about the college. Talk about the other two as well, and kind of maybe the order of sob we should be thinking about it.
Absolutely. So just a tip of the hat to that idea of focusing on the college. I know exactly where that comes from. It comes from all of us engaging in society. You know, we hear the names of certain colleges. We have a concept of prestige and reputation. We have goals for our children, and we think, oh, they should go to this school, or I'd be so happy. I want to put the sign in the yard that says, you know, Mary is going to this university. I mean, a lot of our stuff as parents gets caught up in that.
Yeah.
There are 2,000 four-year institutions in the US, and all of them have amazing pathways and programs that can support a student towards success. So sometimes we just get hung up on that name of the college thing because that is the nature. Another wrinkle to that, or difficulty, is that when we begin to engage with this process of helping our student make these three decisions that are ahead, the college part is tangible.
Right.
We walk on the campus, we stop in the bookstore, we buy the bumper sticker, we get a tattoo. I'm kidding, maybe not a tattoo, but maybe. We eat somewhere. We have a visceral experience. We go to the football game, you know, and so that it becomes what your student associates with their experience. And will that be an experience that they have? Well, here's another one. This one's funny because it works sometimes the other way. Sometimes it's bad weather when you go visit. Sometimes you have a bad tour guide. Sometimes something smelled in the college and your kid is like, I am never going there because it smelled. Or the tour guide was bad or whatever. And you're thinking, oh, no, don't, you know, so just as ridiculous as it is to not make a decision based on that, it's also not good to make a decision based on the fact that you had really good food, you know, one time when you visited a college. But when we visit a college, it's a tangible experience, and that's why people focus on it. Okay. Yeah. So it's not that it's not important. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's a real world example. So my son Simon, who's now a sophomore going into his junior at West Virginia, so that's where that was my alma mater. I took him to a football game in third grade, right? Bought the uniform, the jersey, and everything. He never got off of West Virginia was his choice. Now he did look at other schools. Yep. But he's in West Virginia because like he had such a great experience. It put such a memory in his head, and he just from then on out, like, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. So it's so true. It's tangible, it's real. It was an emotion that he felt. So
let's take it a step further into those other two decisions that students need to make. If they are college bound and they're at the end of high school, absolutely they have to pick a college, because we're going to put all the stuff in the car and drive it somewhere. Yeah. And that's where they're going to go. They do have to pick a college, but believe it or not, at some point, they also have to pick a major. Yeah. They do. Sometimes they have to pick a major as early as fall of senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So at certain universities, if you don't go in the door in that major, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get into that major later. So you might not be able to start and then change. Okay. At some universities, it works almost the other way, where they, like a traditional liberal arts college, you might go 2 years taking general classes, then elect your major, but you still have to pick a major. You do at some point. So you have to think about number 2, which is the major. And then number 3, I would tell you, you've been through it multiple times. I've been through it twice. I have 2 kids that graduated from college last year. So very excited. Yeah. But the third thing is that first job in their career field comes rapidly. They may be interviewing for internships in the springtime of their freshman year of college. Certainly their second year of college, they should be looking. So that whole thinking about the kinds of jobs, that is as early as you can bring that into conversation, even in high school, will help your student who is college bound. So again, pick a college, pick a major, have an eye on a career. Those are the 3 things. And where most people will take the time and go to number one and spend all that time driving around to colleges, we would tell you to put that in reverse order, to think first about the type of career that can be a good fit for you. And hand in hand with that would be to do a lot of that self-assessment work, to think, who am I? What makes me tick? What do I enjoy? What kinds of things have I seen out there that can feel like they're a good fit, and tie that together. And we do private work with families that is specifically self-assessment and career exploration oriented. That whole concept of, I know I'm in this kind of segment for the careers I'm considering, then that lets the student think about, what do I study? So if I want to be a veterinarian, if I want to be an accountant, if I want to be an editor, what if that's my kind of my career thinking, and I've got some meat behind that, what would I study naturally in college that would support my effort to move toward that kind of job?
Yeah.
So that, we would argue, is number two. Then number three is, where do I go to college that has the character and qualities that I'm looking for in a university, that fits our budget, that's, that has the other things, does it have the other things I'm looking for, clubs or co-ops or, strong internships, and, does it have a small town feel or a suburban feel or an urban feel, whatever I'm looking for. Third in our book is the college. So we challenge families to think in that order. A little bit different than the classic, let's just go visit colleges.
So you actually work with families then, in the sense of preparing for the experience. And that's what you do, as far as you'll do a self-assessment. Basically, you'll have the student, I'm assuming, do this assessment and see their personality or behavior types, and then really get to know them, I guess, on an emotional or intimate level, right? And then from there, like if they like to be alone and big crowds scare them, like, that kind of stuff. And then
that is then we help them, just to extend that thought. So the process that we use is kind of like, you and I were probably used to or have done some of the online assessments that are out there.
Yeah.
When we do those with our kids, often they come back with sometimes humorous results, like, it'll come back and the kid will come home and say, I took this assessment at school and it said that I should be a bus driver.
Yeah.
And I know that I shouldn't be a bus driver. And
Right.
like, the mom will laugh and say, well, what did you say? That, you like to travel? What was it that you like, people? So there's often, they can be funny, they can be frustrating, but no matter what, they often don't yield a lot of valuable, meaningful, tangible information. So they're just quick and dirty. They're trying to get a student started. So the process we use is like the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
It is interview based.
Mm-hmm.
The student wants to sit for 5 1-hour interviews with their facilitator. So over time, they're going to spiral into more and more information about that student's interests, their values, their preferences, their strengths, their struggles, their lifestyle goals. All of that will come out on the table in the process of those interviews. And the facilitator's job is to kind of help probe and clarify and ask and get that student to really be honest with themselves. Then once it's all out, we take that and we synthesize that into lots of things. So we can produce really that snapshot of who they are, that self-assessment, and then we can begin to connect that to jobs that can be a great fit. Yeah. And we can indicate jobs that can also, you want to be kind of be aware that these might not be a great fit. So you talked about not being great under pressure. No. You might not do well in it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. In an emergency room or whatever. So I think just getting that kiddo to understand that the who I am part of it is what drives what kinds of work can be a wonderful fit for me. We just want every student to find work they will love.
Yes. Like, that's really what we talk about too. Like, we both spent so many years in corporate America, and we were really good at our jobs.
Yep.
But it was the grind and, whatever. But then here we are now living our purpose. And we tell everyone, when you live your purpose, you're not working. It's not, the grind that you feel. I mean, sure, it's hard work, but if you're doing what you love, then the success and money will follow. And I think the focus on, I want to be this because I'll make so much money, or have the success or the power or whatever, then it becomes deflating if that's not where they should be emotionally.
That's exactly right. And I think a lot of kids, when they're in high school, they're surrounded by their peers who are saying all kinds of things, right? So sometimes it's hard for that student to be honest and find their voice of what they really want for themselves. And that is truly one of the things that is the gift of students who go through that guided self-assessment process with our facilitators, because they don't have anybody else listening. They can be honest. They can, whatever it is, if they say, I want to open up a pizza shop in I don't know, in Poland, next summer, we'd say, okay, let's talk about that. Is it, is it a love of retail? Is it that you love pizza? I just am totally making that up. But I think it's just really good for that kiddo to be able to remember that everyone around them has the right and the opportunity in America to make whatever decision they want to, but you do too as a human. You can make the decision that's right for you. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of college, I know we're going to talk about it at some point, but then that layer comes in. How are we going to pay for this? And we have to sort of strip away the ideas of, how do I want to say, how important is it what college you go to? What budget do we have as a family? Not only for you, but for the next siblings that are coming along. Those economic realities, college now costs so much that it's essentially reached a tipping point where many people, including teenagers, are saying, I don't think it's worth it. Yeah. I don't think it's worth it. And it's a fascinating conversation.
Well, so I want to dive into that for sure. And we also want to dive into the alternatives, but just back to, we see certainly the value that your organization would provide in that process, but these kids are sitting in high schools today, right? And there's guidance where counselors and, parts of the organization to help them. You work with schools and you probably have seen examples of maybe best practices that are out there or things that schools have done that kind of help students along this process as well to get started. Are there things that you've seen in your experiences or based upon your experiences would suggest that maybe parents should go and ask the schools to make sure, do you have this process? I'd like my child to go through it.
So the schools are in a tough spot, right? So especially our public schools, the primary way that they are measured is through how students have met certain academic mandates that they have. Yeah. Okay. So that's number one. It has nothing to do with career preparation, nothing to do with self-assessment. On some level, something to do with college, because they do like to ring the bell and say, we have this percentage of our students from high school went on to college, mm-hmm. right? So their primary focus is that. They often have huge caseloads, especially in public schools, 400, 500, 600 students per counselor. So the idea that counselor can really sit with my student for at any kind of length of time and help them discover and think, I think we have to properly set our expectations and know that that's, even if I ask, that's probably not something that they can do. In terms of career exposure in our public schools, I'm seeing a little bit of things that are popping up. It's very uneven. It's not universal across all kids. It may be like a special thing that happens one time of the year for some career exposure. And usually those things, Larry, are tied to state, college, and career readiness law that's built in. Like our schools have to do certain things to expose our kids to career and college readiness. So they'll have some check marks that they have to fill out. So So what are schools doing? It varies tremendously. Sometimes I see a high school English teacher who will assign a project about career exploration, and they'll have kids, explore a career. But again, these things are one-off.
One
They're
off.
uneven. It's not predictable. And I wish I had a magic wand and could really change that and help expose kids to the concept of self-assessment and career exploration while in high school. The one thing I will mention that's been out there for a number of years, and unfortunately a lot of people from my generation, I'm 55, they wrote this off as there's a stigma associated with our career centers, our career technical schools. So I don't know if you're at all familiar with that kind of education.
Or the
Yes, it's what we used to call vo-tech. So today that is typically
STEM, STEM.
typically you'd see it under the banner of what's called career technical education. So think of these schools so like when I was in high school in the state of Indiana growing up, there was almost a diverter. So when you were in high school, if you were going to college, you would stay in high school and take the college prep classes. If you were not being a successful student, maybe if you had learning differences, we wouldn't have said this back then, maybe you learn better with your hands. Maybe the idea of going on to college is just very much not right for you. You would be diverted to our career center where you might choose a program like, automotive maintenance or cosmetology or
Yes. Yeah.
yes. So sometimes it would be called Votech. So remember that was like way back in the Stone Age when I was in high school. So today's career technical education is tremendously different. It is unbelievable. And it is the gold standard for helping our kids, whether they're going to college or not, get exposed to that kind of learning in a career area. And they're in healthcare fields, IT fields, certainly all the classic trades like we remember, but they've expanded robotics. They're much greater programs that exist for our high school students, but a lot of times it means that they would leave the high school for part of the day, go to their career technical education program, and then perhaps return. So I am a huge fan.
I mean, so Chester County Intermediate Unit has the technical college. So it's, allied health, it's nursing, it's
Yep.
some of these others so they will leave and come back, but they'll graduate and they'll still go to college, but they have this advanced training already.
That's exact.
So it is really a great option.
It is really a great option, and kids can mix and match. Like they can do that program and also come back to the high school and do, AP classes or dual enrollment classes if they are heading to college. And if they're not, they can actually take those credentials from the career tech program in high school and go straight into the working world. And then maybe come back for more education in the stackable credentials world. So I think it's just really important, I guess, to summarize that part of our conversation. Families have to remember, kids' nature is to put their head down. Sometimes our nature as parents is to just say, well, I think you stay in high school and you just take the classes in high school. And it's our job to look up also and understand the options that exist for our kids so that they can really craft their own pathway through high school that meets what makes them happy and excited and plays to their interests.
And they think they know at that age. They really do. They're like, oh, I know that I want to be a this, or they're competing with their friends, and then they go to college and it's not even focused on career. It's just for having fun and socializing. And then they come out of college and there's no jobs today, right? And then they come out with this debt and they're like, well, I don't really like what I went to college for, or I don't even know what I want to do. And you're like, why did we even do this for 4 years? We blew this money. You're in school. You learned, but did you? And it's just like a whole experience. I feel like what you do is so necessary, just really learning about the child and how they best fit in certain environments, even learning. Like everybody has a different way of learning.
And I can tell from just talking to the two of you and having listened to your work before, you understand on a daily basis as an adult how important understanding your own strengths and struggles and goals, how important that is, because that can help you continue to find and refine your path toward work that you will love. But we're also adults, so we've had all these experiences along the way. I am here to tell you that at 16, at 17, our kids have had enough experiences that they can talk about. And often those innate traits, some of those things that are truly strengths in you two and in me and in every adult, they were there at 15, 16, 17. Nobody just helped us understand that, wow, that specific interesting trait that you have can play out really well in this kind of way in adulthood. No one helped me know that. It was just getting lucky, to figure it out. And I don't believe in luck as a fantastic strategy.
Sure. We're all born with a gift. I think and it's a matter of connecting with it, like you said. There's the obvious ones, the ice skater who is on the ice from a young age and she's just amazing. And then that's her career. In my youngest daughter's case, she wanted to be a school teacher and she was carrying babies since she was born. So, and that never changed. So to me, it was clear, yep, this is what she wants to do. But my oldest wasn't positive, but thought it was going to be in fashion and then pivoted midway through. So
think about the limited exposure and experience that our kids in a traditional K-12 environment have. They go to school every day. They do not get exposed to real world careers. How can we expect them to know about real world careers? Where are they getting information? Well, and again, I don't mean this to be offensive to teachers at all, but they're surrounded by teachers who went to college to become teachers.
Yeah.
So that's all they know. That is what they know. And I'm glad they know it. And I'm glad they teach. But they also have a limited view of real world jobs that are out there. So then our kids watch TV shows, watch videos, and they're getting snippets of what careers are like, right? From Grey's Anatomy or whatever. And the CSI effect on careers was hysterical in the past several years. And those professionals are always angry because those, the Hollywood version of those jobs is not the real, real. Yes. And so it's like, you're telling people that's how this is, and it's really not how it is. So our kids, I can't blame them for being career illiterate, because they are. And I've said that to teenagers' faces, and they're always a little bit shocked because no one likes to be called illiterate. But then when they think about it, and when they'll own it, they'll say, nope, I do not know very much about careers. And that's a problem, to have that lack of exposure.
Yeah. No doubt.
I would say, I would also flip it around too. And so my daughter just graduated. She has, she wanted to pick, or she had picked a career, interior design, and kind of based upon that, then chose the schools to go, the colleges to go visit. Now it was a choice based upon her, like what she thought were her skills, her interests, and so forth. Mm-hmm. So some level of, due diligence and thoughtfulness that went into that. The challenge that I found, though, as we were going then through the school search process, is that then limited the number of schools that she could go to, because not everybody has that. It's actually
exactly.
Either the arts, the very small, very focused arts, and architecture type schools, or it's the very big ones, the middle ones that might be more economical, or the private ones that might be more economical. They don't have it. So then all of a sudden you're stuck with the big universities that may not offer the same type of merit scholarship and so forth. And so I found that to be a struggle as well, kind of going through it, because I felt like it limited then what the choices were. So
it does, but if that's what your student is confident about and wants to study, that's sometimes people they'll look for almost like sibling majors, or ways that you can kind of cobble together the same types of education in college that may not be under one name. So we teach a college application workshop. Every June, we have a whole set of rising seniors that go through this, and we try to teach them about that college search and some of those tips and tricks, like don't just look for interior design. Maybe you look for other design majors that teach the same, but that may open, that kind of idea can open a student up sometimes to having a slightly wider list of colleges that they look for.
But on the positive side, then that's what she wanted, right? And she
Yes.
was felt empowered to make that choice. And so I think when you're that way, then you are more prepared to live with the decision, right? So later on, if there are student loans, and there will be, right? Then she'll be, okay, I made this decision based upon this. And I just said, all right, 1 year at a time, go down there, start to take the classes, get a feel for the campus. And, it doesn't have to be your final choice if you don't like it or you want to switch. But look, you made your choice, and I'm glad you made your choice based on what looked like logical, sound logic, thoughtful process.
I think you did a fantastic job of implementing a tip that I wanted to share, and that was having open and honest conversations. So that is the whole key with our kids, is that when this whole college thing starts to come on the table, or even more generically, what are you going to do when high school is over? I think we have to, as parents, sort of attempt to set aside our expectations or our hopes or what we were projecting on our child's future. If we can set that aside and let our student speak honestly about what they want after high school is done. I can't tell you, we've talked about one of your kids that was heading to college, and looking back, you're not sure that was, maybe what would have been, if you had considered other options, maybe there were some other options. There are many children right now who are struggling through traditional high school. They are not enjoying what they are learning. They are not enjoying how they are learning it. And the whole idea, when someone says to them, and you're going to go to college and do 4 more years of that, and it's going to be harder, they're like, no. So I just think allowing that adultish conversation to really emerge with your young adult, that can help them start to see how to move toward a life that can give them work that they love, can allow them to be independent, to live the way that they want to live, right? That's what we want for them. And I know, Larry, that there are shorter, more hands-on learning options that exist that don't look like traditional 4-year BS or BA college. They exist, and they're very popular right now because they're less expensive. They're typically directly tied to work. There are often, with many of these shorter hands-on programs, there are employers who are basically waiting at the end with catcher's mitts to catch those kids who come out with those skills. And then I mentioned stackable credentials before. Almost all of these programs are a first stepping stone into that career. And often that employer will have that new employee who finished up one of those small programs. They'll want them to have more skills. They'll send them back for another credential or certification. And so that then helps that new employee move up the ladder in terms of responsibilities and money. So I think as parents, we just have to be open to all of those options and recognize that, it's our kid that gets to live their life after high school the way they want to. And so it's helping them get there.
Well, so I think that, when my oldest, who's 28 now, when he was coming out, again, my thought process is, you go to college, that's what we'll do. But the reality is, and maybe it's shifted, it has seemed to have shifted a lot in the last 10 years or so, but the trades are a very viable alternative. And actually, given what you've talked about with the cost of college and the skyrocketing cost of college and the very questionable return on value, and then some of the majors that people seem to be coming out with, that these are great avenues for them. And the flip side is, some of these are people who want to be entrepreneurs, want to be business owners.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a faster path. Go out there, you really get great at a trade, at a skill, and all of a sudden you can start your own business up locally where you've already had relationships and so forth. And it seems like that's become a very viable and a more popular option. So I don't know how many people that you work with kind of go down that path after they go through the assessments with you, as opposed to going to college. But it seems like,
We Yeah, that's a great question. We don't actually track that because what a student does after their time with
yeah,
us, we can't take credit for that, and we can't take the blame for
right,
that if they, it was an experience. So, but what I do hear is that this generation, the trend is that, today's 16, 17, 18-year olds are, I think, where they might have 5 years ago thought a lot less about options besides college. Today, there is a growing voice. They're hearing social media influencers talk about how they have grown their own business. Here's what I do. I went to this welding program or what. So they're seeing examples out there, and it is a real thing. And we've been open to it from the start. When a student does that self-assessment and career exploration process with us, there is zero expectation of what education you will do, because you can't know what education you'll do until you know what kinds of careers you have your eye on. So if you come out of that process and you're like, holy cow, I totally understand why I want to be a child psychologist. Guess what? You're going to have graduate school. If you want to be a user experience, a specialist, you're at least getting a BS or a BA. If you think you'd like to go, begin work in the healthcare field, you can really do that with an STNA or a CNA. You don't have to initially have a degree. So our whole thing is, if you think first about who you are, then about what kinds of jobs are right for you, then the rest of the pieces can fall into place.
yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. I think that, this is very pertinent. Like I said, when we started, to where we are in our process with our kids, and what's still to come. And hopefully, I think valuable for those listening in as well. We're in the same boat. And even if you have young kids, this is coming at you very fast. Before you know it, it's going to be upon you. But I did want to give you an opportunity, if there's things that you felt are really important for the audience to know, maybe that we haven't touched upon, feel free to share now, if we haven't, like I said, discussed it.
In terms of like tips for parents or ways to get in touch with
On this
us.
topic in general, where we've gone, if there are things, tips, or recommendations for either the parents or the kids.
So I'll only come back to that idea of picking a career for all my life, when I'm 17, just
Yeah.
circling back around to that, because I don't think we addressed that, though. We addressed it beautifully with lots of things we talked about, but just to say one little direct comment about that. I know where that resistance. So a lot of times parents will say, we shouldn't talk about this. This is careers. He's just 17. It's too much pressure. I understand that. But as I said before, this all will come quickly. Yeah. And I know nobody wants to believe that those years of college go fast, but you've been through it. I've been through it. They go faster than the high school years go. They fly by. And sooner than you believe, your student will be thinking about that work. And you're paying that money. So my whole thing is that I would like to help a parent reframe that thinking and help a student think about the first job role that they would like to target when they are done with their education. That's a lot. That's a lower bar to grasp, or to lower hurdle to cross. We're not talking about what anyone is going to do for the rest of their life, because we know as adults, it's extremely rare for anyone to do the same thing from the time they are 22 until the time that they retire. That's kind of ridiculous, right? Life changes, jobs change, interests change. But what does come quickly is the first job role. And so if your kiddo can think just about, just those things, and it's interesting, Dawn, I'm listening to the questions you're asking. You naturally are doing this. Help your kiddo know. Do you want to sit in an office? Do you see yourself surrounded by other people, or do you want to work with other people, or work kind of more by yourself? Do you see yourself using a lot of technology? Do you see yourself meeting and talking with people? Just getting them to think through what the characteristics of that work might look like. Those little nuggets can be gold. So I wanted to just make sure that we talked about that, about those parents that might be like, she's going to talk about careers for my 17-year-old. And I'm like, I am, but because it's coming faster than we think. So I will also suggest to families that if they want to connect to our team. So our company, again, is called At the Core. Our website is gettingatthecore.com. So www.getting, the word all out, written out, gettingatthecore.com. And at the core, the concept was helping our students figure out what's at their core. So getting at the core, we publish a free weekly newsletter that's filled with high school, college, and career planning information. We do a ton of webinars, free and low cost webinars. We do lots of other things throughout the year to support families. Almost all of it is available online in some form or fashion. So we have families from all across the country who join us as followers and just take what nuggets are important to them. So we welcome everybody to join in.
And we'll list that too.
Thank you.
Contact at the end.
We'll put that on the listing for the podcast itself, and then we put it out on social media. We also
perfect.
I apologize. I don't know if you could hear it, but of course the landscapers decided to come and are literally right out front the window. So all for the last 10 minutes was the lawn mowing, the leaf blowing. If there are leaves, I don't even know why they're out there.
Can't hear it at all. So I think you're
our listeners, but you know what? We're just going to keep it in there because this happened to us before.
It's funny. We moved recordings from Wednesday to Friday for that reason.
Because they did it on Wednesdays and today is Friday. So what's happening? I don't know.
You know what? I think as in life, we roll with it. And I think that would have never known that you were experiencing that. So I'm so sorry.
Background noise suppression.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for such a wonderful conversation. I hope it does maybe get the creative juices flowing with your followers to think about how can I really help support my kiddo, so that they are able to live independently. They go to work and have a smile on their face. And then maybe this is just me, but that they do not come back and live in our basement when they boomerang back. Our job as parents is to get them to the edge of that nest and watch as they fly away. That's the joy, right? And so
we're supposed to make them better than us. So, we should be elevating them at all times, teaching them, letting them go through hard times, supporting them through that, but not fixing it for them or doing it for them, because that doesn't help or teach them anything. And I'm not, I feel like I'm a military parent, but I don't think my kids would say that. I'd say maybe they think I was tough, or I don't know. I don't know what they think about me, but.
Well, you should ask them, because I hope that they would tell you that they appreciate what you did. And I would say just from my years of having done this, that when we remove all those obstacles for our kids, we are truly robbing them of the opportunity to have an experience that they need to be successful as adults. And it really starts all the way back. I remember my mom was a Montessori preschool teacher, and I can remember just certain little things that she would tell me along the way when our kids were little. And I can remember standing there watching my kids learn to tie their shoes, and where a lot of other moms would just get in there and just we got to go in time. I would put my hands behind my back and I would wait because I'm like, they have to learn to do this, or else I'm going to be tying their shoes the rest of their life. Right. And that little analogy forward into their life in their 20s, we can't remove all those barriers, or else they never learn. So
the Velcro to that analogy. Yes. The Velcro shoes, the little kids, and there were no tying of anything. And I was like, this is awesome for me because I'm in a hurry, but this is not helping them learn how to do this.
Velcro fade. It didn't hold. So.
But the point is, Dawn, that by recognizing that when our kids are going through tricky things, that we need to let them go through those. But with us, I like to think of parenting, especially as our kids get older. I use the phrase a lot, shoulder to shoulder. So kind of sitting shoulder to shoulder with your kiddo, considering so it's not confrontational. It's not me telling you what to do. It's kind of, let's think together. Gosh, looks like you are in a little bit of trouble with whatever. Let's think through that. How, what might you think is a good solution for this? Or just getting them to learn to do that.
Well, I think the visual I'm going to take away from this conversation is just, I like the shoulder to shoulder, right? And I also like, the fact that they go through high school with their heads down because they're so scheduled and there's so much they got to get done. I think sitting shoulder to shoulder with them, getting them to lift their head up, having those adult conversations to talk about what are the options. Let's start thinking about it. If you can do that in 10th, 9th, 10th grade, then you're way ahead of the game, right?
You are way ahead of the game, and you're laying the groundwork that helps your child move confidently toward what comes next and ultimately toward work that they will love. And that's what we really all want for our kids. I think it really is less about the name of that college. It's less about certain things that we get caught up in, but it's easy to get caught up in those things. So hopefully this discussion helps reframe that for families.
And recognizing their strengths and personalities. And maybe that's just because I'm a life coach and I'm always thinking about feelings and stuff. But I think, when I think about Carmel, his youngest daughter, she loves animals. It's been evident since I've known her. And she recently inquired about maybe being shadowing at a veterinarian where we take our dog to. And I was like, wow, kudos to her for even wanting that, right? She's 15, no, almost 16, right? So she's already thinking like that. And then she's gravitating towards a field that she has an interest in. So that's her personality. I just think that's perfect. That's an exact example of, I think, how we can then recognize my oldest daughter is very introverted. My other one is very extroverted. So my oldest is in finance and does numbers. And when I'm in sales, she's like, I don't know how you talk to people all day. I can't do it. It drains me. I don't want that. I want to be alone. I'm like, I could never do your job. I could absolutely never sit in a room and do numbers all day. I would lose my mind. So it's just that personality trait that is so important that we're born with. It's not something in 10th grade.
And neither is right or wrong or good or bad. It just makes us, being able to recognize that's who I am, what my strengths are, what makes me tick. That will always be a strength. Having that concept of self-awareness going forward in life, whether it's in personal relationships, in work, in a neighborhood, all those things, understanding what I struggle with and understanding what my strengths are is always going to serve a human well.
Yeah, for sure.
I love this conversation. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys have found the work that you love and that you get to do it. And hopefully those the lawn folks that were outside there also.
They just stopped, of course.
Hopefully they're doing work they love today too. So
right? So we can't yell at them.
No. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us and imparting all your wisdom and knowledge from your, what you do every day, which is so valuable to the families and the kids that you serve. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day and we'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of the His and Her Life Hacks podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to having you join us on future episodes. If there's a topic that you would like Dawn and I to discuss, please feel free to contact us at dawn.jacoby@grit2grace.com or larry.ambrose@grit2grace.com. See you on the next one.